So our text today, it's a combination of mysterious visits, beginning with the story of an angel visiting men to tell them that strange events that would occur. That's the backstory. One was told that his wife, who was relatively late in age to have a baby, would finally become pregnant after years of trying. And that's followed closely with a message to Joseph, saying your fiancée is going to be pregnant and sorry mate, you're not the dad. That would have been a shock for, well, both Elizabeth and her husband, Zechariah, and also for Joseph, I would think. Then Mary has a meeting with Gabriel, the culmination of a string of mysterious visits. And Gabriel has a very strange and unlikely message informing Mary of that mysterious birth. Now, for most women, getting the news of a pregnancy, I said most, it's joyous. For some, it's frightening, or it could be a mixture of both. For first-time mums like Mary and Elizabeth, it is a moment of mixed emotion. And in our text, Mary was in the strange space of bodily changes, in addition to being subjected to people of her own town who would be talking, accusing and gossiping because she could see that they could see that she was pregnant but not married, adding stress to the basic issues of her pregnancy. So Mary needed somebody who she could understand. And Elizabeth was also pregnant for the first time. She would also face gossip, the gossip being different to what Mary's would be about, and it would be about her age. Isn't she too old to have a baby? If they had WhatsApp, Instagram and Twitter in those days, it would have been ablaze with stuff, I would think, in and around Bethlehem and the surrounding area. What both women needed was compassion. They needed a safe space of unconditional acceptance. What they needed was what we often seek in God or Christ and perhaps in each other. In both, we see what casting our lot with and being blessed by the God of Israel really looks like. Namely, that being blessed by God, by the God of Israel, means seeing God in the world and trusting that God is at work in things, even in things that we can't see or understand or imagine. And I suspect that that's what they understood. But they also needed care. They needed the physical presence of each other, somebody to be with them. They needed to know that they weren't alone. It's okay saying that God is with you, but you need somebody to be there to reassure you. I know that God is here, but I need someone who has some skin. God knows we need his skin, not simply the knowledge that he is everywhere. People today are desperate for skin, to be loved, for someone to be real to them and real with them. Mary needed Elizabeth and Elizabeth needed Mary. And they needed God and God needed them. Now, going back to our text, Elizabeth, as we know, did have a child in her old age. And we all know who that child was? John the Baptist. So God did what God said. And that child also ended up being, sadly, persecuted and ultimately beheaded. Just because you end up being God's chosen and anointed doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a cosy, cushy life, does it really? And it's reflected today. There's the pain of the reality that somebody's child might be in jail. Another person's child might be doing drugs. Someone else doesn't even know where their child is, perhaps. Another child is abused in secret. Another child is dying of cancer. And maybe a child is away at war. Some child never returned home. And some child is estranged from their parents. All these parents are in need of care. They are in need of someone who can be with them in their pain. And Mary, the mother of Jesus, enjoyed the pain of motherhood. The scriptures speak of Mary being there for Jesus, even though some members of his own family thought he was crazy. That Mary was skin for Jesus, even though Jesus had that intimate relationship with God. He needed Mary to be there. We also find Mary at the cross of Jesus. And there he was, crucified. Her hopes and dreams seemingly shattered, but there she was, skin for Jesus. And so along that journey, God continued to provide someone to care, to be that skin. Even at the cross, the scriptures tell us that Mary's own son saw to it that someone would look out for his mother, that somebody would be skin to Mary. So over 2,000 years ago, Mary dared to believe, and even today, lives are being transformed through the teachings and love of Jesus. What God promised was and is true, but wasn't and isn't easy. What God has for us is wonderful, but there will be adjustments and bumps along the way. And the good news is that it's true for us as it was true for Mary. In it all, we have a friend. We have a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And I know when my wife, first wife Maggie, was dying that last week of her life, it was okay. I knew the hospice was a phone call away. And I knew other things were just a phone call away. But I needed somebody there in the same room with me. Somebody who I could talk to. Somebody I could shout at, rant and rave at, etc. And that person was there nearly 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day with me during that last week. So even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and we needn't fear any evil because we know that God is with us, sometimes we need somebody with us. The world that we think we know, where the strong and mighty rule, where the hungry starve and the rich feast, where power is found in kings and castles and governments rule in the halls of power, where COVID in its many variants casts fear into our lives, that world is not all that there is. Mary knows that God is working. I know effectively that God is working. As I said last week, I'm a believer. God cares about those who are suffering, those who are despairing, who are afraid, the hungry and the lowly. God is working to pull the powerful down from their thrones and to send the rich away empty, to lift up the lowly and fill the hungry with good things, to give hope to those who are afraid. God is changing the world. He sent his Son, but he's also sent each one of us. This baby Mary carries, this baby whose birth we're about to celebrate once again, this baby is the centerpiece of history. And this baby, Jesus, has and will change everything. So let me just close in prayer. Loving God, we thank you for our companions along our journey, those who have been skin for us, those who visited us with gifts of hope, those who visited us with gifts of endurance to walk alongside us even during difficult times. And for your presence with us along our journey, we also give you thanks as we continue walking into our destiny. And we do so in the name of Christ. Amen.